What's up, guys? I'm EJ. I'm joined by Kendall, and thank you all for checking out the New Generation Media NBA Draft Mailbag question and answer session. You know, we've been doing videos now, Kendall, for several years, and a lot of the videos we thought about have been really our own creations, our own ideas of things we thought you guys would want to hear. But as we make it to draft week, as we get to that finish line of finally seeing what's going to happen with the 2021 NBA Draft, we thought it'd be a great chance to actually listen to you guys and get you guys' perspective and get your questions for what you want us to talk about. So Kendall did a great job. I also solicited questions as well. We went on the internet. We went to find people and see what do you guys want to hear. So basically, Kendall, that's what we got here, and I'm excited to see your answers and some of the questions we have for today.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, Q&As are fun because it takes us out of our comfort zones a little bit. You know, we can make videos on what we want to talk about, but now, like you said, we're now talking about what the fans want to talk about, or what the viewers want to talk about. So, it's super exciting, and we had a ton of great questions. So I'm excited to dive into these.
Yeah, thank you so much to everybody who sent out questions, and I don't think this will be the last time we do this. So that email address, newgenerationmedia@gmail.com. You could also reach us on Instagram, on Twitter,
and comment
section, and in this comment section as well. Exactly. Yes, if you have more questions, we'll certainly do.
That's what's so great about this, is that when you mentioned how we've done this for years, we've had people comment on our videos a ton. Absolutely. Over the years, and asked plenty of questions, and EJ has done a lot of the legwork in terms of answering them as best he can.
Yeah.
But this now gives us a chance to answer those questions in a more thought out way. And so, no doubt, whenever you want to leave a comment on any of our videos, we'll certainly keep track and try and answer them as best we can.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't expect this one to be the last one. We certainly will do more of these mailbag Q&As. But let's begin with this session, and we're going to start with a question. This one from Bash Maddox 1998 on Reddit. They ask, I don't know if they're he or she, but they ask, is Josh Christopher going in the first round, and where do you think his draft range is? So I'll toss that one to Kendall first. I know you've been following Jacob's career since high school.
Yes.
Obviously, this for a lot of the high school ball is life followers. This is a big time to see where Christopher will end up now that he's officially in the NBA draft. So what do you think about his prospects of making it in the first round?
First of all, if you're a fan of high school basketball, college basketball, you should definitely check out the Uncommitted podcast.
For sure.
We're on the New Generation Media YouTube channel. But when it comes to Josh Christopher, I feel like he's a sort of interesting prospect where he has a high pedigree, similar to a guy like Romeo Langford, who ended up going in the lottery in his draft. But it's weird because I feel like the teams at the back end of the first round, which is where we would expect Josh Christopher's range to sort of start, those teams you would think would tend to lean veteran guards or older guards in the draft. We saw last year there was a run on those guys, like an Emmanuel Quickley, like a Peyton Pritchard, like a Malachi Flynn, for those contending teams. The Knicks didn't realize they were going to be a contending team, and then that ended up happening. Raptors thought they were, and they ended up not being. Mm-hmm. But a guy like Tyrell Terry fell back. He was, looked at higher than those guys by many people going into that draft, and he fell into the second round, being a little bit more inexperienced. So Josh Christopher is interesting. I think you have to circle the Lakers at 22. Mm-hmm. And the Clippers at 25.
He did work out for the Lakers.
Did recently work out for the Lakers, obviously.
Being excited about possibly playing for them.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think the Clippers as well. Clippers, I think, have a guy on their team that reminds me a little bit of Josh Christopher and Terrence Mann.
Totally.
And so that would be an interesting fit. But yeah, no doubt. I think that's the start for the Josh Christopher watch. But this is a deep draft. So in theory, it can go anywhere from, I think, that spot at 22 to, in the second round.
Yeah, I mean, when I forecasted Christopher's range, I felt like first round was probably unlikely, only in the sense that this is a very deep draft. I feel like, in terms of guard play, I feel like if this was another year, I think he would definitely be a late first round pick. But when you started to see where these mock drafts are having these guards, it's going to be stiff competition. I mean, he's battling Ayo Dosunmu and Trey Mann, and he's really good guards.
And
So
again, not to cut you off, but you talk about veteran guards, Ayo Dosunmu, Quentin Grimes,
right,
going to be in that range. Trey Mann, Joel Ayayi, those are going to be all guys.
Sean Highland.
Bones Highland, all guys who stayed multiple years in college, whereas Josh Christopher looks to be more of a project.
Yeah, so that. So that was going to be tricky. I do agree. I think the Lakers' hometown advantage, and I actually feel like he actually fits a need. They seem to be done with KCP. It sounds like he could be traded before this video comes out with the way they're trying to ship him and Kuzma. So they're gonna need help in the backcourt. They like Horton Tucker, but they're gonna need more guys. So
and they need more Lakers, pop. They need more.
Definitely do.
They need to improve the athletic profile of the team.
Yeah.
And Josh Christopher is a guy that would do that. He's a gazelle in transition. I think that's where he thrives best, is in transition, very similar to a guy like Stanley Johnson in that regard. And I think, the Lakers, with guys like LeBron and AD, they need to get more guys that can thrive in transition.
Yeah, because we saw late in that series, it felt like the Suns were just too quick. Just too quick for them. Too fast.
Yeah, and you look at the Clippers as a team that, may not have Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
They're gonna need to add wings. So,
but to me, in terms of the teams that I thought, I'm gonna say that he will, and I think the teams to look at closely will be Phoenix and Denver. Phoenix is gonna need also some pop on the backcourt. We don't know what's gonna happen with Campaign. We know Chris Paul is the point guard, but he's getting up there in age. And Devin Booker logged major minutes throughout the playoffs, which he's expected. He's a star, borderline superstar, but they really didn't have another guy to play behind him that they were really comfortable with. So I feel like Josh Christopher, he played college ball not too far from there. That could definitely be a fit. And I think Denver also could be a fit as well, because they're very small in the backcourt. They had a lot of injuries. Jamal Murray's coming off a major injury. I think adding you lost RJ Hampton, last year's guy who you were hoping to develop. And, I think they made a good trade with that, but getting in Aaron Gordon, but maybe replace him with another young player you can develop that's kind of in a similar athletic profile. So I think that Denver, if he gets picked in the first round, I think those are the teams that are most likely.
Fun fact, he's also very close with Bol Bol. Both guys played in California in high school. So, obviously if you go to Denver, that'll certainly be a fun summer league pairing.
Exactly. Thanks for the question, Bash Maddox. Let's go to the next question from OKOnion2247, also on Reddit. He asks, which team do you think would look to trade down in this year's draft, and why do you think those teams specifically? So I targeted 4 teams that I think could definitely trade down. Ironically, one of the teams I feel could trade with one of the teams I said they could trade down. So it's kind of weird. But the first team I identified was Cleveland, because Cleveland's in a weird spot at 3 to me. It's Evan Mobley. Seems like he's a lock to be there at 3. We don't know exactly what Houston's going to do, but I think there's this idea that they could very well go with Jalen Green. And they just traded for Jared Allen, who I think is proving to be a pretty good young big. I don't see how you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley on the same team. So something's got to give there. Either you got to move Allen, which they could do, but if they're not enamored with Mobley, I don't know why they wouldn't be, but if they aren't, maybe you try to say another team, say, hey, do you want Mobley? We'll take a couple picks, like a team like Orlando, who has 2 picks in the top 10. Said, you want to move to the spot, we'll take those picks. But because Orlando has those 2 picks in the second round, in the top 10, I also feel like they're a team that's potentially could move down, because we have a position where the guy you want at 8 isn't there. Maybe you don't mind going back a couple of spots. A lot of times when you see these drafts and some of these draft trades, that's a lot of times what happens. Is teams who have multiple picks, and fans usually get super excited for them, and then they see their team trade out of, the picks. Like, wait, what the heck? We did all this to amass this value. It's like, well, you got to think about it from the team's perspective. If their guy is either not there, or they realize a guy that they value is not being valued by other teams, it doesn't make sense to just take the guy at the pick. You get maximize the value. The Knicks fans, we learned that a great deal last year when they traded out of 23 to go back to 25 or 21 to 23 to take Emmanuel quickly. So
Celtics fans have learned that numerous times in the Danny Ainge
exactly.
draft pick era.
So that's why Orlando, the Rockets, and once again the Knicks also having 2 first-round picks. I think those are the other 3 teams I would look at as teams that say, hey, if their
So you think the
guy,
Knicks may trade down? Because I think most Knicks fans assume
yeah,
a trade up when you have 2 picks in the late first round.
And I think they're gonna try, but I think just like last year, if things don't work out the way they like, or maybe things do work out where they like, where they feel like, okay, the guy we wanted at 19 was there, okay, but with the guy we're looking at 21, we don't need to take him at 21. We could take him further back. They can look to do that. So I wouldn't rule that out because we saw the team literally do it last year. So those are 4 teams identified as teams that could definitely trade
down. I think Cleveland is going to take Mobley.
You do?
Yeah, I think they're going to take
Mobley. And I think that's
but
more likely, but I think the trade down option is definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, practically speaking, you're not wrong that, if Mobley's a 5, I think long term, and having Jared Allen is a weird fit. But there are reports that J.B. Bickerstaff is intrigued by their, potential combination. So that is something to pay attention to if they do take Evan Mobley, that they may try and play them both in the front court. Going back to the good old days of having 2 7-footers,
Twin Tower front court,
Twin Tower. I like the Orlando one as well because I feel like at 8, most people have pegged Orlando to take a guard at 8, and because you're taking a wing, you would think you're taking a wing, Scotty Barnes or Kaminga at 5. Assuming Suggs goes 4, and if you're taking Suggs at 5, then that's also another guard. And they don't need guards. You have Cole Anthony, you have R.J. Hampton, you have Marco Fultz coming off an injury. I just feel like adding another top 10 pick guard to this roster seems to be a weird play when you already have 3 young guards that you hope to be a part of your core long term. So at 8, they could stick with the pick and go with a Franz Wagner or a Şengün or someone of that nature, but
Moses Moody.
Moses Moody. He can play the 3, so that actually may be a good fit. But they also, may wind up trading down. But I actually pegged some teams lower in this draft. I think most of the teams in the lottery, I don't think there's going to be a ton of movement. I feel like a team like the Lakers that I mentioned earlier in this video, there are reports that they may be looking to trade down, and so I'm sort of cheating because I'm leaning on the reports a little bit. But there are reports that they may be looking to trade down, and I feel like when you think about why, they have 1 draft pick, they don't have a second-round pick, and they are a team that when I talk about they need to improve the athletic profile of the team, they need to improve the farm system, for lack of a better term. When you're a team that doesn't have any first-round picks for the next 10 years, and they may not have any going forward if they try to get someone like Damian Lillard. You need to improve your farm system as best as possible, not only to continue to bring young talent to this roster, but also to be able to have assets to trade.
Exactly.
So they need to take some swings in this draft. So if you can get any value, if you can trade from 22 back to maybe even 32, maybe you're trading out of the first round, but you're able to pick up an extra second-round pick from a team, that could be enticing for a team that needs to again improve their depth of young talent. So I look at them and the Clippers. I think are a team in another similar situation, not having Kawhi Leonard potentially this season. They need guys that are going to be ready to play, and they may need multiple guys. If you don't have Kawhi Leonard, so they're another team that I could see taking a swing. But yeah, I think at the top of the draft, I think the Pelicans were the one team that made the most sense, and they've traded down.
Exactly.
So, shout out to David Griffin and Zach Klein for giving us the first trade of the draft.
Yeah.
Second trade. Shout out Brad Stevens and Sam Presti for the first trade.
Right, but that's not a draft trade. We're not counting that. Fireworks starting early with the trade between the Pelicans and the Grizzlies this week. Thanks for the question, OK Onion. Let's go to Kenny Miscellaneous, also on Reddit. He asks, where is the best fit for the high ceiling, low floor prospects to give them the best chance for development within a reasonable draft slot? So he mentioned Kaminga or Kai Jones as examples. I'll let you go first, Kendall, on this one.
Yeah, this was a great question.
I love this question.
Yeah, it's a great question because, I think fit is probably always the most important thing, almost with both basketball and football. When you're talking about, evaluating draft prospects, it's not as much the player as much as it is the fit sometimes. And for guys, particularly guys with high upside, you want to be able to put them in the right situation to see their potential through. So for a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, he feels like he was built in a lab to be a Magic or a Thunder. He feels like a Rob Hennigan, Sam Presti, perfect specimen in terms of his athleticism, his ability to play in transition, his ability to guard multiple positions. So you think OKC, I can't see him going past OKC. And, obviously Hennigan had a long time. He's in OKC now, had a long time in Orlando, and they've stockpiled a bunch of those guys through the years. So he may end up going there as well. I would love Jonathan Kuminga with the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't think he'll fall that far. I feel like he's been kind of picked on in this draft process as the guy that people are going to, take pot shots at.
He's definitely the non-trendy player right now.
Yeah, he's the non-trendy player. Scotty Barnes has become, Scotty Pippen. I call him Scotty Pippen Barnes for the last 2 weeks. And Kuminga, we assume is gonna bust somewhere. But if he can somehow get to the Memphis Grizzlies, he is, I think, a perfect fit for what they need. I know, they're shooting, that people feel they need to add, and that's certainly something that you would like. But I also feel like his scoring ability is one of his more underrated traits. And long term with Ja Morant, obviously his ability to play in transition would be perfect, but also long term, I think he can be a guy that can carry a scoring load for an offense alongside a guy like Ja Morant. And that would be, I think, a perfect fit for his development now because he's playing in a winning environment on a winning team, but also long term, I think would be great for Kuminga. And then real quick, you mentioned Kai Jones as well. I get the Lakers. I mentioned the Lakers a lot so far, but, I think about him playing with Anthony Davis long term, him playing with LeBron, obviously, that, most young players can benefit from playing with LeBron.
Yeah.
He provides them spacing and shooting. He defensively, I think, would get coached up quite a bit playing under Vogel and playing with Anthony Davis and LeBron. You're talking about a guy, again, with a ton of upside. It kind of reminds me of Andrew Bynum on those Laker teams playing with Kobe, playing with Powell, where he continued to get better. Initially, it was just playing with Kobe and Lamar Odom and those guys, but then eventually Powell comes and he continues to develop. And I feel like that is where Kai Jones could be if he ends up on the Lakers. Not to mention he's also a Clutch Sports client, so shout out Rich Paul.
I love I really do like the Kai Jones idea. I think that far as looking for a mentor in the NBA, I don't think he could find a better one than Anthony Davis for his game. I mean, I think that to me, he reminds me a lot of Anthony Davis, like a homeless man's Anthony Davis, but like the way he plays, like offensively, like if he becomes whatever you think he could be as a star in the NBA, it'll look something like Anthony Davis offensively. So if he got to just play under him and learn from him, I think that would be a really great idea for the Lakers. So I love that fit. For me, I didn't. For Kaminga, I don't actually see him as a low floor guy. I'll be honest. Sorry to the question. I love the question, but as far as just the perspective, I think that he's at worst definitely a rotation guy, and I think he probably almost at worst a starter in the NBA. That's my.
Well, I guess if you're going based off of where he's going to be picked, he could be considered a low floor guy. If he ends up being just a rotation guy, if he's Wesley Johnson's a rotation guy that was drafted in the top 5. But
but like I don't disagree that I think Memphis would make a lot of sense because they need I think there's something about Memphis where we understand Ja's greatness. We saw it in the playoffs and in the playing game, but I think there's also an added thing too of there needs to be, how do I say this, like they need an isolation creator outside of Ja Morant. You know what I'm saying? Like Ja Morant is the engine. He's the focal point. He's running the show. But I don't necessarily think that I want him also being the guy that's also creating his own shot as my primary scorer. He's a great player. I think a franchise cornerstone. But they're gonna need another guy next to him that can create shots on the perimeter. And Kaminga, if he's everything he's projected to hopefully be, could be that guy. So I like that fit. But I like the Kai Jones thing. When I put though for Kai Jones, maybe a bit of a stretch. Though I think this draft is very unpredictable. I also think this team could also definitely be a target to trade down. I think Kai Jones in San Antonio actually would be a really good fit too. San Antonio's front court has lacked so much pop for so many years. They don't have
get it pop.
But no, but they don't have it. They don't have a lot of athleticism. I know they've worked on that. They got the kid from Kentucky, but some of the other first round picks haven't worked out. They need another athlete. They need another skill player in that front court, and I trust San Antonio's player development system better than almost any other team. So if there was anybody that can make Kai Jones into the player we think he could be, I would say San Antonio. I know it's 12, I believe they're drafting. That might be a little high, but I think they're also the team that if they need, like they're the team that needs to take a swing on somebody. So I wouldn't hate it if they took him that high. But then two other bonus guys who weren't mentioned, but I do consider high ceiling, low floor guys. Zire Williams, I think in Denver would be great. They have a great track record of dealing with these super prospects that had, for whatever reason, disappointing college years and figuring their game out and turning them into players. I mean, we know what happened with Michael Porter. Bol, he can't get on the court for some reason, but every time he's on the court, he looks spectacular. He like to me, and then they drafted R.J. Hampton next year. I feel like Zire Williams would just be definitely the next in line in terms of a high school superstar who maybe fell out of favor due to whatever happened during his in between year between high school and the pros. And then I had Keon Johnson in Charlotte. I think most people probably consider Keon Johnson a low floor guy, but thinking of him running the break with LaMelo Ball, I mean, you may never see any other highlights besides LaMelo Ball if they get another athlete the caliber of Keon Johnson.
It's funny because
on the wing.
I was talking to our younger brother about, he's a Pelicans fan, and when we made the trade at 17, Keon Johnson then became a possibility. We had to start talking about, what about Keon Johnson to the Pelicans? And he was wondering, what's kind of a comp for Keon Johnson. I mentioned, he's kind of like almost like a skinny Miles Bridges, and like that's funny that you mentioned. Would he be great in Charlotte? And he would be terrific playing with LaMelo Ball, no doubt. But yeah, I see Zire Williams to me. I think about the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know if he'll fall that far, but and I think about the Clippers. I think the opportunity to play with either Paul George or with Kevin Durant would be excellent for a guy like Zire Williams, who has all of the tools to be terrific. Just has to put it together. But yeah, that's another guy that I looked at and thought that those would be great fits for a player like him.
So thanks for the question, Kenny Miscellaneous. Another question from Reddit from Kept Cold. They asked, what prospect who didn't shoot the best percentage-wise but had decent mechanic do you think will shoot well at the next level? I also targeted 4 guys here. So first one, Evan Mobley. He only shot 30% from 3. And I think, every time I see that he shot 30%, I'm always surprised because every time I see, whether I'm watching tape or I'm watching just highlights and I see his jump shot stroke, it looks great. It was on very low volume, so I feel like as he gets to the NBA, as they encourage him to take more shots, I think he'll be fine. I also put Keon Johnson. Because the one thing I always look for is other traits you may have with shooting besides just shooting threes or shooting standstill threes that show that maybe you can shoot the ball well. Kendall's a big proponent on free throw attempts, which I think is certainly a good parameter. I also look at other kind of shots, and one of the things that Keon Johnson has shown is he's very good shooting out of the post and shooting and pull-up jump shots. Those numbers are pretty much way above average in terms of percentages and efficiency. So the touch is there. To me, when I watch him shoot, he looks like he's kind of aiming it when he's from that 3-point line and he has time. I think he's thinking about it a little too much. The form is fine. His base is a little wide. I'd like to see him maybe tighten up a little bit. But he had no little problem when I see him pull up from the mid range or when he's shooting a fadeaway from the post. So I can't imagine why he can't make a wide open three on the next level. So I think Keon Johnson, two other guys I mentioned. I want to mention Austin Reeves, shot well at Wichita State off the ball, played on the ball at Oklahoma, shot the ball well in everything except spot up catch and shoot jump shots. I don't know why. I think some of it had to do with fatigue, honestly. Because another guy, when shooting up the dribble, it's like he can't miss in the mid range. So I think he'll be fine. And I also think Cameron Thomas, another guy who shot low percentage from three, I think a lot of that had to do more with just shot selection. I think that we all know he can make shots. And I think that better shot selection, a better role in the NBA, those are guys you'll see shoot much better percentages when they get to the pros.
Yeah, there's definitely some good names. For me, I'm going to agree on the Austin Reeves thing. Obviously, big Austin Reeves fan, as are you, EJ. And, the Wichita State part of it is definitely interesting. He's a guy that was lights out at Wichita State, was he was your quote-unquote shooter who became more of a point guard at Oklahoma. And with the increased, offensive workload, we saw his shooting numbers dip. Wasn't for a lack of shot-making ability. It was just, the percentages where you're taking the degree of difficulty of shots that he was taking in college, the percentages tend to dip. He reminds me a lot of Nick Stauskas. Now, I will say someone like Nick Stauskas, when he had his increased offensive workload in his sophomore season, his percentages didn't dip. So, interesting thing to note. But, talk about the free throw percentage. He shot 86% from the free throw line, Austin Reeves. So, I don't think he's not a great shooter. I think, he took a lot of tough shots at Oklahoma. I think those shots will hopefully get easier at the next level if he's playing off the ball, which I think he probably should be playing a lot off the ball. Two other guys, though, to mention. I'm going with two freshmen. I think Zire Williams, the guy we mentioned, I really like his form. I think, too. And speaking of form, Austin Reeves has an excellent form, by the way, which is also why I think he'll be fine. But Zire Williams, I think, has a really nice form. He shot really poorly on catch and shoot, which is really bizarre but off the dribble, he has flashed a ton of self-creation.
I believe off the dribble, I think he shot something around 38%, which is pretty good. Like, that's not a bad number. Because those are contested shots a lot of times. And he was shooting that really well. It's one of the few shots he shot pretty well.
Yeah. I believe he shot like under 25% from catch and shoot threes, which is, it's a putrid number, no doubt. But I feel like that can be worked on because his mechanics aren't off. He has a knack for putting the ball in the basket. He's had that knack for a long time in his career. I think last year was really a year where you almost have to throw out everything for Zire Williams, given everything that Stanford had to go through. I think he's a guy, and also again, he shot 80% from the free throw line. So, I don't look at him as a guy with a broken jump shot necessarily. I think, degree of difficulty, again, similar to Austin Reeves, plays a factor as well. The last guy, BJ Boston, guy we haven't talked much about on this YouTube channel, but he's another guy that has a really, really nice form, pretty quick release. When he really gets into his shot. Not pretty compact, not too much motion, not too much wiggle in the shoulders or anything. And, I think he was a shot maker in high school, and the shot making didn't translate as much to Kentucky, but I think it was more streaky than it was inability to make shots. Again, he shot 30% from three. I feel like if BJ Boston is going to work at the next level, it's going to be as a shooter. If his shooting can translate, he's a guy that'll stick in the league and be at the very least, I think, a rotation guy because he has a lot of the athletic traits. He has the length and the physical profile to be an NBA player. It's going to be about how well does he shoot it. And at Kentucky, he didn't shoot it well, but I also think that Kentucky team was not great for him. Like if you would have traded him with James Young, would he have had a similar year that James Young had? I don't think he's as good of a shooter as James Young was, but I think that there are some similarities in the two players. So, yeah, I think B.J. Boston is a player that I think could wind up shooting better at the next level.
I like those picks as well. Thank you to the question, kept cold. And then lastly, this one from Instagram from my man Garvey. Shout out to Garvey. He asked me, I want to see continued progress for the Knicks. He's a Knicks fan, as am I. A 3 feels right. Goodbye, Kevin Knox. Sorry, K Knox. That was not me. That was Garvey. Anyone you see fit at the small forward position. So, bad news, Garvey. I think that, as we talked about a little bit in our small forwards video, which you should check out, by the way, on YouTube, our top 5 small forwards. I think small forwards is probably the worst position. If it's not worse, it's like second worst. It's not very deep. And I think that where the Knicks are picking, none of the guys that there's only 1 or 2 guys that may be available that would make sense for where they're picking in both spots, where you're talking about 19, 21, and then also at 32. So it's funny because the whole the Knicks needing a small forward thing is picking up way more steam than I would have expected, because the whole thing has been about point guards. But I think there's apprehension about what's going to happen with Reggie Bullock, and is Reggie Bullock even really a true small forward, which are all fair questions. I would argue R.J. Barrett needs to be a small forward, but that maybe is another discussion for another day. In terms of this draft, I think if they're hopeful for a small forward with one of these first 2 first-round picks, that the guy they should be targeting is probably Trey Murphy III from Virginia. An excellent 3-point shooter, an excellent defensive player. I honestly don't know why he's not being looked at much higher.
Yeah, man, we talked about it in the sleeper video.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I like Moses Moody. I talked about Moses Moody, but I don't see much of a difference between him and Moses Moody, in my opinion.
Besides age, but then Murphy's 6'9", so
right. But Murphy's old. Yeah, he's 6'9". So to me, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it so that makes me wonder if because I don't get it, some team in the top 15 is gonna take him. Because somebody's gonna be like, yeah, no, we agree. That's why we were gonna take him at 13 or whatever. So, but I do think Trey Murphy at 19, that's definitely a possibility. If they were looking for a wing. The other guy I would say, if you're not, because I don't think there's anyone else I would take at 19 or 21 at the small forward position besides Murphy. If you're looking, that's mocked there. If you're looking at 32, also very few guys I would take a flyer on. But there's one guy who has been linked to the Knicks, and it's our good buddy we talked about in our last video for the centers, Vrenj Blazenberg. I'm trying to do it this time. Blazenberg, because I know I didn't do it. I abstained the first time.
Shout out the Belgians, man. Eden Hazard.
But Vrenj Blazenberg, he's already been linked to the Knicks. I know they worked him out. I know they've been talking to him. Look, the guy's a 6'11", point forward. He's a very unique prospect. I think almost any team is going to be intrigued by his talent. And when you look at the New York Knicks, when you have 3 picks, 2 in the first round, 1 very high in the second round, the idea that a stash guy might be in there somewhere makes a lot of sense. Because do you want to bring 3 new rookies onto your roster this year? I know they have a lot of free agents, so maybe they do. Maybe they do want to let some guys go. I don't know. But I would assume they're going to try to bring some of the guys from last year back and then add a few guys in free agency or through trades. So I don't know if you want to bring in 3 more rookies. So he would be the kind of prospect that you could ship overseas. There may be things you got to work out with, where does Toppin and Randall fit and all that stuff. Maybe some of that gets worked out by the time he's then brought over. So those would be the 2 guys I would look at for the Knicks. If you're looking at the first 2 first-round picks, I'd say Trey Murphy. If you're looking at the 32nd pick, I would say Vrenj Blazenberg would be the guy I would look at for them.
Look, we heard that Tom Thibodeau said it, that they're looking at wings that can shoot.
Yeah.
So that's certainly something that's a line to remember.
Something Murphy definitely can do. He's a wing that can shoot. That I can guarantee you.
Yeah, he might be at the top of the draft, when it comes to that. Besides, Corey Kispert.
Right.
But that's funny because I looked at the question slightly differently because I wasn't focusing as much on the small forwards, but just what should the Knicks do. If that's the question, then I mean, the guy that I mean, look, first of all, get out of the way. I love Sharif Cooper. He might be available for the Knicks, and if they take him, that has my full support. I'm not convinced they're going to take him. I don't know if he fits. He doesn't feel like a Tom Thibodeau point guard. Like I don't know if Tom Thibodeau's ever had a point guard like Sharif Cooper, so I'm not buying that he's going to be a Knick. But if they do, got my full support. Who I think they should take that feels a little bit more like a Tom Thibodeau guard is Jayden Springer. I love Jayden Springer. His dad, Gary Springer, has a New York City background.
For sure.
He plays with a toughness and tenacity. I know a lot of people, like EJ, a Knicks fan, a lot of the Knicks fans, they love Davion Mitchell, off night. I know he's a great defensive point guard.
I'm still trying to manifest Davion Mitchell picking up Trae Young full court next year in the first round, man. I'm speaking it into existence.
It would be an excellent fit if he were to fall. I mean, he's not going to fall to 19, and if you're talking about guys that can be similar at 19, Jayden Springer gives you maybe not the lateral quickness defensively, but he gives you far more switchability than a guy like Davion Mitchell does. He's much younger, so he may not be immediately plug and play, but as he continues to develop, I mean, he's going to be able to get minutes on the floor just by what he's going to do defensively. But he's a tough, gritty guard who can get to the basket. We know Thibodeau loves tough, gritty guards that can attack the basket. His shooting has to improve, but he didn't shoot the ball terribly at Tennessee, just on low volume. Mm-hmm. Jayden Springer is a guy that I would not be shocked, and I also like the fit between him and Emmanuel Quickley long term. I feel like it's kind of a yin and yang sort of deal where, Quickly, not the biggest or best, guard defensively. Springer, not the best shooter off the ball, maybe a little better with the ball in his hands, facilitating or getting to the basket. Quickly, can be a dynamo with or without the ball in his hands offensively, but then defensively, isn't going to wow you with anything. So, I mean, I think Jayden Springer would be an excellent fit for the Knicks. And of course, a guy to keep an eye on is definitely Usman Garuba. Real Madrid big, playing out, in Tokyo for the Spanish national team. He's repped by Leon Rose's son, so definitely something to take note of.
Yeah,
last time I saw a guy like that, it was Obi Toppin, and he ended up being a Knick. So, but from a basketball perspective, Usman Garuba feels like an interesting fit for the Knicks. What he does defensively is, I mean, again, similar to Jayden Springer, one of the best defensive prospects in this draft. I think opposite of Jayden Springer, he is, although he's young, he's an immediate plug-and-play NBA-ready player from day one. He started many games for Real Madrid in the ACB for 2 seasons, which is not something that you see from 19-year-old kids. So, I mean, he's a guy that I think fits perfectly for what the Knicks bring in terms of that tenacity and that toughness every night. It's just, how much do you want to make a strength a strength? When we're talking about Jayden Springer and Usman Garuba, you're already a great defensive team. I don't see how they would add both of them.
I can't imagine Thibodeau feeling like he has too much defense. I can never imagine that being a concern of his.
Well, look. And
now could he be concerned about having too many power forwards? If you have him and Toppin and Randall, that may be more of a discussion when it comes to Garuba. But again,
if the last regime was running things, then yes, I think.
and then Garuba would be a lock if Steve Mills was still calling the shots. Let's keep it 100. Man, I don't know about you, man. I had a lot of fun doing this mailbag. I almost certainly feel like this will not be the last time we do a mailbag. Not just for even draft stuff. I think for superhero stuff as well. It might be something we need to pull back out. Maybe we'll pull back out as early as next week. You never know. What comes to if we get some more good draft
summer league.
Summer league coming up.
Beginning of next season's draft cycle.
Free agency.
Free agency is a possibility. Post summer league. So plenty of opportunities over the next over in the future, in the horizon.
Exactly. So thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Of course, leave a comment with what you guys thought about these answers and these questions. And as we just said, I think we definitely want to do another mailbag. So drop questions in this comment section and let us know What do you want to hear us talk about when it comes to the NBA draft? If you watch this video after the NBA draft is over, feel free to post questions about the post draft, and maybe we'll do something on that. Of course, if you like this video also as well in regards to what we talked about, you can comment on our answers. And, of course, like this video if you did like it, and subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media, for more draft content. That's going to do it for now. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.